morning, everyone. Love it. That's awesome. So I want you to think about what your greatest fear is. So what is your greatest fear? I want to ask you to hold that in your mind and think about what that would actually be like to confront that fear, to come face to face with that fear. Now, I know when I was about 4 or 5 years old, my greatest fear was the basement in my parents' house. And I think that's probably pretty common for a lot of folks. Now, I would be playing in the living room, and my mom or dad would be in the kitchen cooking dinner, and they'd ask me to go downstairs to get something. Now, the basement ordinarily shouldn't be that terrifying. You know, our basement was pretty ordinary. We had these cinder block walls, this yellowish tan kind of paint over them. The carpet might have been truly terrifying. It was this 1970s dark brown, orange, and yellow monstrosity. But it was a pretty empty basement. When I walked down to go downstairs, I would flip on the light, the top of the staircase, and I would kind of walk down the stairs, and I would get to that bottom step. And I got to that bottom step, there's some wood paneling to my right, cinder block wall to my left, and I would try to summon the courage to dart across the room. Because in my parents' basement, the only light in the main part of the room was a small light bulb similar to the one on the screen with one of those thin little chains. And at night, this was particularly terrifying. And so I would take this deep breath, and I would turn the corner and run for my life. And I imagined these monsters creeping up on me as my hand outstretched towards that chain that I knew was there in the center of the room. And just as I grasped it and pulled it down, the monsters would retreat to their corners. Now, the truly funny part is I also had to go back up the stairs, right? So I'd get whatever it is that my parents needed me to get. I'd hold that chain for just a minute, and I'd think, okay, I can do this. And I'd pull the chain, and I'd run. And I was only slightly more agile then than I am now. And so most of the time, it involved me falling up the stairs on my way back. So fear is, at its core, a biological response. We look at the world around us and we see some sort of threat, something dangerous, something that makes us scared, and our body responds. And that response consists of all these hormones and chemicals kind of flooding our body, and we experience fear. It's kind of that classic fight or flight response that we all learn about. Students in the room, you're getting your biology credit right now. The first response is flight. So that runaway response, kind of like I did in the basement. We forget everything and we run. The adrenaline, the cortisol, all of those chemicals run through our body and they prepare us for the run of a lifetime. The second half of that is that fight response. And this is what we normally associate with courage. It's to face everything and rise. But here's the tricky part. Even this reaction is still grounded in the fact that we are trying to preserve ourselves. It is a defense mechanism of self-preservation. It has nothing to do with anybody but ourselves. So we have all these hormones and these chemicals flowing through our body, and how do we manage to ride this wave of energy that we get? And the truth is that our body actually allows us to do this, if only we tap into it. Dr. Kelly McGonigal at Stanford University studies the effect of stress on the body. And even more than that, she says that she studies the biology of courage. And what she's found is that people who respond to stress by focusing on others have an entirely different biological experience than people who focus on themselves. For her, she's found that when we focus on empathy, adventure, and reason, we can equip ourselves to channel that energy in a positive direction, to achieve the ends that we want to achieve, and to be the kind of person that we ultimately want to be. Those people that focus on other people, that look to others, that lift up their eyes from their self, sorry about that, they are the ones that are able to channel that energy into the direction to change the world. So when we talk about empathy, this is where the biology credit will come in. When we focus on other people in those stressful situations, our body will give us oxytocin. And oxytocin is a hormone, chemical, that will run through our body and encourages and strengthens that connection with other people. It also has the effect of dampening fear. It'll take that fear and kind of put it in a box, kind of in its proper place. The second chemical that our body will give us is dopamine. And what dopamine will do is it raises our levels of hope and optimism, but it also prepares us for a physical response. It allows us to seek that adventure. And it also has the impact of taking that fear and decreasing it even more. And because our body is prepared for action, it'll prevent us from freezing in that moment, from sitting there kind of paralyzed with fear, not knowing what to do. The third gift that our body will give us is serotonin. And serotonin is a chemical that allows us to think critically about the situation at hand. It clarifies our thinking, it clears out the clouds, and it helps us pick that perfect strategy for that particular situation. And so our body gives us these gifts only by focusing on somebody other than ourselves. So even when I'm standing on that bottom step, it wasn't my own courage that got me off. It was, I'm here to help my mom or my dad, and I need to get this done. Because that's what ultimately propelled me off. Now I asked you to think about your greatest fear. And I actually came face to face with my greatest fear in the story that Mike described a little bit. So when I was a junior in college, I felt really passionate about getting rid of hazing in my fraternity. In my fraternity, if you were to look at a list of things you should not do and all the things in the media that you shouldn't do as part of hazing, we were doing them. And I saw a lot of really good men leave as a result. Just men with hearts of gold. And I saw them get hurt by this stuff that was going on. And so when I became an officer, a leader in the fraternity in my junior year, I said, I'm going to take this on. And so I met with administrators on my campus, and I asked them to coach me through that experience. I asked for their help, for their guidance. And at the end of my junior year, my fraternity called an emergency meeting on Wednesday of finals week, so the last week of final exams, at midnight. And it was for this bogus reason, so we all showed up in the chapter room. And as we were in the room, the vice president stepped to the podium. Sorry, let me catch up on my slides. He stepped to the podium and he said, I've got 2 letters to read. Who wants to read them? And we all kind of looked at each other and like, I don't want to. And I heard the words, Dear Linda. And so my heart just sunk into my stomach. And I raised my hand, I was sitting in the back row, and I said, I'll read them. And for the next hour and a half, as I read the letters, which are excruciating detail, they named dates and times and people's names of everything that we had done over the last couple of years. And as I read those letters, these men that I had called brothers, friends, the ones who I thought would stand beside me no matter what, the ones I thought would be standing beside me and behind me at my wedding someday, were yelling the meanest, nastiest things to me. They were telling me how they were going to hurt me, and some of them even said they were going to kill me. After an hour and a half in that room, I was allowed to leave. Now, I don't tell the story because of anything particularly courageous that I feel that I did. I know that I only got through it because of my focus on those good men that we had lost, that had been hurt by this experience. But I tell the story more about how I benefited from the heroism of others. And so when I left that room, I got up to my room, and I called my best friend, Chris. And all I said to him was, Chris, I need to move out. About 10, 15 minutes later, Chris and 2 other men showed up and moved me out. It was like a scene from a movie. These 50 guys who had been in the chapter room had come out of the chapter room, and they were lining the hallways, yelling things at us, telling us they were going to hurt us, and all those sorts of things. So I asked Chris a while later what that night was like. And he said that he was leaving the house, and his roommate, Joe, said, hey, where are you going? It's the middle of the night. And he said, Chad needs to move out. He said, can I help? And so Joe and Chris are leaving the house, and Trevor's like, hey, where are you guys going? said, Chad needs to move out. And Trevor says, can I help? See, these men went into that circumstance not because of some heroic thing that they could do, but because their focus was on me. I was the beneficiary of the heroism that they showed. And it tremendously moves me to this day. And we're talking about 15 years. The idea is that when we focus on ourselves, we don't live up to the potential that we have. But by simply taking our eyes off of ourselves and focusing on other people, on that great thing that we're trying to accomplish, we tap into a power that takes us to the heights of what we can be as human beings. It connects us with others and allows us to make a difference in the world. I know it because I've seen it and I've experienced it. So if you want to be a hero, think about the people you can help and look at the people around you that need your help, and you will get there. Thank you.
The Hero Roundtables are the global events that ask the question, what is a hero? You've just seen one hero talk. To find more and join the conversation, visit our website or social media.